Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. Now, this is the 1 hour chart of the Dow Jones Industrial Average provided by netdania.com. You can click on the link below. You can see now that we're rallying again. We're doing another bounce like we did down here, doing it up here again with the Fed pumping up the stock market. It's really amazing how often they do that and how much they won't let it fall. We've now got the Fed backing off of any commitment to raise interest rates, or at least giving language that they don't intend to for quite some time. So let's pull back to the daily and show you. There's how ridiculous that move is right there. And here is where silver is. So these are the two that we've been looking to reverse. And we had a false reversal there, and it looks like we may have a false one here. So we may just do a blast off right there and have them run the paper up some more. Now, a lot of important news is coming out in the currency markets. The strength in the dollar is absolutely phenomenal, and this is what we're going to be talking about here, mainly when we're talking about these other currencies. But we can see the weakness in the euro, plumbing the depths, nearly new lows. The weakness in the Japanese yen, you can see that it's still just heading towards that 150 to the dollar mark. But we also have the weakness in the Russian ruble, and now we're starting to see weakness in the Chinese yuan. Here's the ruble. Now, the ruble started to recover when we got that news story about China coming in. You can see that the ruble got all the way up to a ridiculous 80. We're now back to 58. So there is strength coming into the ruble. Long term, we're still in quite a devaluation situation. So before we go over to that story, let's take a quick look at the Chinese currency, because that's going to be really important here as rumors are coming in that China is thinking about bailing out Russia. So you can see the strength coming into the dollar versus the Chinese currency, and that's this rally that we have right here. So we're in a situation now where all the currencies, not just the basket currencies, that's what we normally see when we're looking at the dollar index. We just see the basket of currencies that are compared against the dollar. Now we're in a situation where not just the basket currencies, but all currencies are falling against the dollar. The dollar is appreciating against all currencies. Now, what does that mean? Well, that's going to have staggering implications for the balance of trade. It means that things that we import are cheaper, but it also means that our exports are much more expensive. Now let's get to that story about China bailing out Russia. This is on Zero Hedge on the 17th. Earlier this evening, China's State Administration of Foreign Exchange, SAFE, Wang Yonghui, noted the impact of the Russian ruble depreciation was unclear yet. And as Bloomberg reported, SAFE is closely watching the ruble's depreciation and encouraging companies to hedge ruble risks. His comments also echoed the ongoing FX reform agenda aimed at increasing the yuan's flexibility, which the South China Morning Post then hinted in a story entitled "Russia May Seek China Help to Deal with the Crisis," which noted that Russia could fall back on its 150 billion yuan, $24 billion currency swap agreement with China if the ruble continues to plunge. That was signed in October. Furthermore, two bankers close to the PBOC reportedly said the swap line was meant to reduce the role of the US dollar if China and Russia need to help each other overcome a liquidity squeeze. So this is really big news if the Chinese are coming in and supporting the ruble. Now, again, as I pointed out, we're currently in a situation where all the currencies are falling against the dollar, and that's going to have tremendous implications. I wanted to take you over to one more story here. This is also from Zero Hedge, and this is from the 16th. Commodity trading giant exits physical gold due to lack of physical with a documented origin. Back in March, otherwise very under the radar, Swiss commodities trading giant Gunvor and its fifth largest oil trader in the world made headlines in the press when one of its then Russian owners, billionaire Gennady Timchenko, estimated net worth $8.5 billion, sold his entire 44% stake in the company to his partner. Let's get down to the main news. But the biggest surprise in this story was the reason why Gunvor chose to discontinue its gold trading. Per Bloomberg, executives decided to abandon the precious metals trading business partly because of difficulties in finding steady supplies of gold where the origin could be well documented, one of the people said. So we're talking about a situation where there's going to be potential battles over rehypothecation. So we want to think about that. Now, I pulled up some pictures here of the bars. This bar here is a 50 kilo bar, and you can see the size of it. We've got the Asian woman there. And these bars here, these are OPM 400 ounce, traditional 400 ounce bars. So you can see the 417 number there, 417.030. We've got 417.050. Those are the two bars that we can see. We can also see a serial number on here, 12.01323. We've got another one here, 12.0132. We can't see that, but this one is 326. This one's 325. So you can see that these are numbered bars. So why is that important? Well, let's go back and look at the stamp on this 50 kilo bar. Kilo is the standard of measurement that they use in Asia. Now, if you remember, we heard the story about the tungsten laced bars that were found in China or Hong Kong. And we've heard continuous stories about the melting down bars in Hong Kong, melting down the 400 ounce bars and casting new kilo bars. So this is going to kill two birds with one stone. If there really is some type of chain of custody or rehypothecation issue, if you remember with the Madoff scandal and the clawbacks that were in there, it turned out that somebody owned something that really was somebody else's, or somebody got gains they shouldn't have and they clawed things back. If you have gold that is originally in a 400 ounce bar and it's melted down and recast into a kilo bar, there's absolutely no way that anybody can make a claim that that's their gold. There's simply no way to trace gold. It's not like, if you remember back in the 90s, we had the stories about the conflict diamonds coming out of Africa. They wanted to mark the diamonds, and the ones that were tainted, we'll say, would be boycotted. There's absolutely no way to do this with gold unless you continue to trade them in the same form, and obviously the Asians aren't interested in that. So what's going on here with gold? Well, it's my opinion that this is really just a gigantic poker game that's going on between the nations, primarily England, the US, Russia, Europe, and China. And it's a poker game as to who has the most gold. Now, if you think about a traditional poker game, you really don't have any resolution until you lay your cards down, until everybody gets to see what everybody else is holding. That's how you determine the winner of a hand. Now, that's in your traditional 5-card draw, 7-card stud types of poker. Now, you also have Hold'em poker, where if you get to the championship tournaments, you'll see oftentimes on the final tables where, for the most part, they don't actually get to the river card. They don't get to see all the cards, and people don't turn all their cards over. Someone makes an enormous bet and takes the pot without anybody having to show what they actually have. Now, how does that apply to gold? With gold, we have nations who claim they have a certain amount of gold. We're currently in a free-floating fiat currency system right now, where no one's currency is backed by gold. But the potential is there for someone to come out and do that. And that potential is the ability to sort of end the game, or at least end that round. Now, how do the countries that are involved, how do they actually show their hands? Do we ever have an instance where the countries that have this gold come and all have tours of their vaults, and they all expose to each other how much gold they have, and then they arrange a new system? Well, that's how it could work, but that's not how it does work. The way that it does work is that the hands are called, the cards are shown when there is a shift from one nation backing its currency by gold to another nation backing its currency by gold. Now, it's my belief that China at some point plans to lay their cards on the table. And the way you do that with gold is that you back your currency and you allow foreigners to actually exchange that currency for physical gold. That's the way you prove the cards that you have. That's what the United States did when we were on the gold standard, at least when we were on the standard for foreigners. That's how you prove to foreigners that you actually have the gold that you say you have. So we're in a gigantic poker game, and we're actually in a gigantic poker hand right now. And that poker hand pretty much started in 1971, when everyone was free to value their currency based on interest rates or other factors. But in the background, there was changes in the amount of gold that different countries were holding. Now we're starting to see the nations of the world distrust foreigners storing their gold, wanting to get their gold back. This is an indication that at some point the cards are going to be laid down on the table. We're going to find out who has the gold and who is bluffing. And we'll talk to you next time.